Welcome to today's Board of Directors agenda meeting for June 25th, 2019. This is our opportunity to review the agenda for our formal board meeting that will be held at 4 p.m. That is a new time change on July 9th, 2019. Again, the next board meeting is 4 p.m. That's a new time change. We will not have a board meeting on July the 2nd. We will have it on July 9th of 2019. The board will not be in session next Tuesday, July the 2nd. We'll now have a City of Little Rock employment retirement. No more presentations. We have several modifications to tonight's agenda. Both items M1 and M2 are related to the selling of land located at the Little Rock Port. Is there a motion to add item M1 and M2 to the consent agenda? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. In addition to there's an item M3 is an amendment to the booting ordinance that was approved at the June 18th Board of Directors meeting. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Today we are here to recognize one of our employees, Ms. Sue Ann Rashawn. Sue Ann is retiring after working with the city starting in February 1997. Some of her awards and honors include Outstanding Communications Professional Award, Civilian of the Month Award, actually two of those, one in 16 and one in 2017, a letter of commendation in 2018. Sue Ann says she has many memories working for the city or events that have brought me joy during my employment. However, one moment that sticks out to me is the day I helped a homeless man who was outside the communications center get some medical help. When the man became coherent, he had tears in his eyes while thanking me for helping him. He felt that I saved his life, and he kept saying how much he appreciated me being kind to him. Sue Ann's retirement plans include spending more time with her family as well as traveling. Let me ask now Captain Ty Terrell to come forward and make a few comments.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Directors, I'm Captain Ty Terrell. I'm the commander of the Communications Division for the Police Department. Just a couple of things about Sue Ann. If you haven't been over to my center, it's a very small, busy place. Being a telecommunicator is a very difficult job. Sue Ann has been able to weather the storm for 23 years. Almost 23 years. That's very impressive in itself, the stress she's had to put up for that long. Her dedication to the citizens has stood for 23 years. Her dedication is so strong that although she has retired as a full-time employee, she has been hired back as a part-time employee. In fact, she was in the center this morning working. She's doing that because she cares about the citizens. It's a hard place to work. She could have easily gone somewhere else in her retirement and got a simple job. Instead, she chose to do the right thing and continue to support the citizens. And Sue Ann, I'm very impressed by that. That is very impressive.
Sue Ann, if you'd please join me at the podium. On behalf of the City of Little Rock, I want to thank you for your dedicated service to the city and to the citizens of Little Rock. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Ms. Sue, Ms. Sue, we want to give you opportunity to give some remarks prior to that. Just want to let you know we do appreciate you and continue to do everything that you've done for our entire city. So just thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the city for giving me the opportunity to be employed there in the city. I feel like every day there's some way I get to help someone. I've always been a caregiver. Started out at 14, volunteering at hospitals and stuff, and this is just my way to continue on. After retiring, I was off for 2 weeks, and I was like, I didn't know how to do with myself without trying to further that. So yes, I am back as part-time, and I hope to continue as long as I can there. Thank y'all for this recognition, though. It's truly appreciated.
Thank you. Before we carry on with the consent agenda, I want to make the board aware of a modification to our rules of decorum. I think we all are aware of how decorum was abused last week as it relates to a city board of director and myself and other city employees throughout the week. And so what we want to do is just make a modification to our rules of decorum so everyone's aware. And I'll read that modification, which is the use of profanity or engaging in a verbal attack on the mayor, a member of board of directors, or any city employee during the discussion of an agenda item or during citizen communications is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Any such action shall result in a bar of the speaker from the attendance at meetings of the board of directors for a period not to exceed 3 months. If such behavior reoccurs after an individual has been barred once, then the period of time can be extended to a period not to exceed 1 year, and will include not only meetings of the board of directors, but also any city meeting where public comments are allowed. Nothing in this notice prohibits the use of mail, email with the city about a matter or of public concern. Further, nothing in this notice precludes the use of any city emergency service if such communication is necessary. Again, this is all it is basically an update to our existing rules of decorum, and it literally adds to a time period of someone being barred. So it's the same that you have in your meeting today, just with a few minor updates to detail the dates. Thank you. Any questions for consent agenda item 1?
Can I ask you about that?
You got it.
I have a question about that, please.
Sure. You got it, Chris.
Is this an issue we're going to bring up at the next meeting and discuss and vote on?
No, it's out of rules of. Tom, can you talk through the rules of decorum?
The rules of decorum, there are some that the board has in place already, and these rules include, among other things, the ability to bar somebody from the immediate meeting if they get boisterous, profane, or make attacks or slanderous on people. This one gets strictly into profanity or attacks on an individual city employee, the board, the mayor, any other city employee. And if that occurs, then the chair, who has the authority to maintain the decorum of the meeting, can not only bar the person, but can keep the person barred for more than just that meeting.
Hold on.
Can you define how we judge what that is?
It's going to be up
I
to
mean, it's the old thing about
It's that's based on Robert Rules of Order. Is up the rules of decorum are up to the chair.
Okay.
I'm just making everyone aware that we're adding that time.
And this is for citizen communication or agenda items at a public board meeting. This is not all types of things people do with the city.
okay.
Thank you.
Hunter,
Yes, ma'am.
does this comply with the First Amendment?
I think so.
Okay. And what definition do you have for attacked?
It's going to be somewhat to the discretion of the chair. If it's one thing, for example, to say that I think that Director so-and-so has improperly or has unwisely taken a position on this, that's clearly protected. I think that Director X has taken a bribe to take a position on this, is now accusing the director of a crime, and that would be out of order.
What if during a public meeting, someone calls a director a name, such as accuses them of being racist?
In and of itself, that would not be something that could get the person barred
Okay. That would not be an attack.
in and of itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Richardson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think Joan and Dean kind of hit on what I wanted to say is how do we quantify an attack? I mean, if a board member has been accused of nothing illegal, I mean, I think we know how to deal with that, but of maybe not attending certain meetings or maybe not listening to certain individuals or being criticized unfairly based on either the actions or inactions of that board member, does that qualify?
Well, you mentioned not attending meetings. That's going to be a factual issue. You said something about deciding unfairly, and you've got a problem. You've got to understand something, that this is a modification of your citizen communications. You're allowing people to speak during your meeting. That is not required. But if it is allowed, then you've basically opened up a public forum. And an open public forum, you can do anything. It's where the standard phrase, I may detest what he says, but I'll defend to the death the right to say it. So, and the exception is yelling fire in a crowded theater. You can't create an emergency situation falsely. But you've got two purposes here. One is to get through the agenda, and one is to be able to have the decorum in the room so that even hotly contested issues are discussed sort of factually and not derogatorily. And so you got to leave it up to your chair to say the decorum's being breached. If the person, I have a suspicion that somebody may approach something and be warned, this is not going to be tolerated. And if they keep on, I imagine the mayor's going to let the person out. I can't make this rule applicable to every type of communication the city has available to it, because there is so much that's got wide First Amendment protection. Parks is the prime example. Public rights-of-way is the prime example. But in order to keep decorum in a meeting, I think that there is discretion given to the presiding officer, which most of the time is going to be Mayor Scott. And when that discretion is used within this guidelines, what is commonly referred to as profanity, what is a personal attack upon a city employee, I think that if it's egregious, the mayor has got the authority to say, not only are you out here for now, you're out for 3 months.
So that's something the mayor can decide unilaterally. He doesn't have to consult with you. And back to the factual part about
Yes.
attending and not, he can do that.
Yes.
Attending and not attending a meeting, and you're not there, but if you refuse to go to meetings where you constantly are attacked, I mean, how does that factor into it? I mean, there's some
Doesn't
meetings.
change the fact. I mean,
Excuse me?
if somebody gets up in citizen communication and says Director X has not been here for 5 meetings in a row. Well, whether Director X was not here because the director had been attacked, or whether Director X wasn't there because of surgery, or because they're not there because they've got some other issue that they're dealing with and they can't come, the complaint is, we've got an elected director, the director's not there. That's not really a personal attack on the director. That is, we're not getting the elected representation. When they go that step further, then they start attacking the individual.
So let's go further. So the slippery slope for me,
It's all a slippery slope.
well, I mean, it is very slippery to me. If they equate your non-attendance with not caring about the issues or caring about that particular area of your ward, how does that factor in? It's very slippery slope in my mind.
And Director Richardson, this comment made today was just, again, this is something that's already in place. We have a rules of decorum, and all we're doing is adding, instead of, it literally states bar that at that meeting, and we're changing from bar at that particular meeting to a period of time.
Gotcha.
So that's the only thing we're doing. It does not account for when a director goes to another meeting and we're talking about the rules of decorum within city board and agenda meetings. And we need to carry on because, again, this is a part of the rules, Robert Order and the rules of decorum. The chairman has, or chairwoman, has that discretion because it could be a situation where I'm out of town and then Vice Mayor Wyrick would still have that same discretion.
Sure.
And in the same example with Vice Mayor Wyrick and myself, we're both out of town. and Director Fortson was the acting chairman, which had that same description, as well as yourself. So let's move on. Any
One more question, Mayor. It doesn't necessarily, so the general public can understand, we're not necessarily changing the rules of decorum. We're just expanding on it, elaborating a little bit more.
Yes, sir.
That's
Very-
all we're doing.
yeah. That's very well said, Director Richardson. Again, we're not changing the rules of decorum. We're expanding the rules of decorum.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very well said. I do appreciate that. Director Wire.
So you're making this announcement tonight, so is this effective as of today? And any actions going forward will
Yes.
be addressed in this manner?
We've been advised by the parliamentarian that it'd be best and not make it retroactive, which we could. But based on our parliamentarian and legal advisor, we need to, from today moving forward.
Okay, and I know Ken talked about some meetings. I think we've kind of talked about that a lot. But if we were in a situation in meetings where we had personal tax, things like that, could we expand it to take care of those meetings as well?
Director Warwick,
Now,
that's a good question. It's a little bit broader. What is in this one is that if you've got a repeat offender, then the second offense is going to result in those meetings also.
Okay. I'll accept that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any?
More, Director Wiring just, I think, sparked another, hopefully the last comment from me on this issue. It goes back to, I think the city manager and I had a disagreement with respect to us putting metal detectors and security guards out front, in the front of the building. I think we based that on a congresswoman getting shot in Arizona, if I remember correctly, and that didn't happen in any municipal building. I think I voted against us putting metal detectors and security guards in the front of City Hall, 'cause I didn't think that made it inviting or welcoming. And I think the justification for that was a shooting of a congresswoman at a rally in Arizona. And I think it goes back to the point that BJ was talking about, attacks or threats at public meetings. How do we address that? How do we deal with that?
Those are crimes. That doesn't implicate the First Amendment. Those are crimes.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions with consent agenda item number 1? Can't hear you.
M1 and M2,
Presentation for M1 and M2.
that's going to be Mr. Day.
Mr. Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. What these are, Ms. Adcock, is about in 2016, the city board gave us permission to buy 318 acres of property at the port. When we acquired that 318 acres, we acquired a couple of Very better. My apologies. It's been a while since I've been here. We acquired with that 2 active contracts that the owner had with 2 small landlords or 2 small landowners. They have 5 acres of land and 2 manufactured homes. And so they have, when we bought the property, we acquired the contract. They have since paid off the contract. They continue to pay those payments, and now we just need to transfer title to those properties.
There you go.
Mr. Day, Young Road, to me, is a street in southwest Little Rock. And evidently, this Young Road is not that street, correct?
That is correct. It may be the same road with a huge gap, but Young Road is off of Tebow and Zuber and Fraser Pike. They're south of the port along the river.
Mr. Moore, could we please have the zip code added to this so that people looking at this would not think it's a 72209 issue?
And it's an 06 zip code, 72206.
Okay, that's all I need.
I'll find out about that Young Road, though. Maybe there's some connection. But no, this is at the port, not in Southwest Little Rock.
Well, it runs parallel with the I-30 getting off at Guyer Springs Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Adcock?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for planning and development items 2 through 9?
Mayor, on item 6, we will like to withdraw that, and we're going to bring that back in combination with a franchise agreement. So staff will withdraw that today.
Thank you.
Mayor, item 4 too, please.
You have a question for item 4?
Uh-huh.
Director Adcock, your question?
Yes, item number 4.
Jamie, if you could come.
Jamie, it says that we have approved this twice before. So why are we doing it a third time?
Well, in any plan development that gets approved, there's a time limit that's at 3 years, so it has expired. And so they're looking to bring this forward to approve, the development hasn't happened.
And what are they wanting to build on this land?
The same thing that was approved in the previous ones. Scott, if you could bring up the site plan for that one. Sketch, there you go. What got approved, if you look at the housing that is just right there on the south of those lots, just north of the roadway, that's what was approved. It was from R4 to 2 family residential, creation of 4 lots for detached single-family homes. So each of those would be detached single-family homes.
Okay.
And let's see, I got the dates here when the last time it come through before the board. 2011 was the first one, and then 2015 was the last one.
And it's been the same plans every time?
Same plan, exact same plan as before. This is just a renewing of the plan development.
Okay, thank you.
James, please stay up. Vice Mayor Wyrick wants you to address items 3, 7, and 9.
Item 3. Scott, if you bring up the sketch plan for that. Again, this was a planned commercial development from a previous property owner that has expired. So the applicant has come in with a different owner for this. Although the use originally was just a planned commercial development, they're proposing to have the same PCD, but this time office warehouses, cell facility specifically for an insulation company. Scott, if you'll bring up the zoning map, which kind of shows an overall for the area. In that location, if you look at it, Rich Wyrick, you have that, or Vice Mayor Wyrick, you have that PCD, and just to the south of it, the other PCD, that was the event center that the board has approved last year regarding that. And so if you'll bring up the site plan, the sketch plan again, Scott. So right now it's undeveloped. It's mostly wooded. Again, it was an expired PCD, and so what they're asking for is just the use of the commercial for the warehouse for the storage of their insulation company, and that is an existing business inside the city limits of Little Rock on University that they're looking to get this PCD on there. The max building height would be about 28 feet. They've got their office hours 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and the warehouse hours are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. At the Planning Commission, there was no registered objectors. It went on consent agenda for approval.
Okay, so this was a PCD that expired,
Yes, ma'am.
and so now the owner's requesting another PCD with this use. It's going to be right next door to the Westwood apartment complex.
I believe that is on the west side. if
West
I remember
side
right.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, right there.
And what are these businesses to the right? Is that like a commercial strip center? I know in the back it looks like it's mini warehouses. Are these already in place? Are they existing?
Yes, it's many warehouse developments are located to the east.
to the
So they're all
east.
existing.
It's all existing.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's all PCDs, commercials, all existing. You got industrial, and then you've got the R2, and then the multifamily. And you got
Okay.
that one little R2 section in there, but I believe that was when it was originally annexed in and just,
Okay.
Hasn't changed.
In our notification process, did we notify Otter Creek?
yes, ma'am, we notified Southwest Little Rock Knife Progress, Otter Creek Neighborhood Association, and the Otter Creek Merchants Association.
Okay. And so Westwood would have gotten notification as well as the event center across the street?
Yes, just due
Okay.
to the distance from the property.
Okay, all right. The next one was item 6, nope, 7, sorry. Thank you.
Scott, if you'll bring up the sketch plan for item 7. What this is an existing facility out there on Doyle Springs. It's been used over the years for several things, industrial, commercial use. It got annexed in back in the vote when they annexed the property in, so it got brought in as R2. Scott, if you go to the zoning map, you kind of see what's surrounding it. So if you look at it, you got I-2 to the north, then you start getting into some residential to the south. So when this did get annexed in, it come in as R2. What they're looking to do is they don't want to do any changes to the site plan, so whatever is out there now is what they're going to use. They just wanted to allow the continue use of the existing building for light industrial. They're proposing no outdoor uses are proposed.
Okay, is this where Wildware was? It is? Okay. Do you know what kind of use is going to go in there? Wildware was a t-shirt producing company.
It just says with allowed industrial zones that all around it.
Okay, with this, are they required to do any landscaping or buffering? It looks like on Fairleigh, there's probably some residences there.
Well, in any plan development approved, that can be a situation they will be adhering to. Depends on what they're tearing up, redoing in the for the property. Like for right now, since they're proposing not to change anything on the site. So if it got developed, and as they touch the site, then they bring it up to the code.
Okay, so
And
at
there
this
wasn't
point,
specifically anything addressed, at that time.
so at this point, it'll look the same.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Then the last one was item 9.
9419. Located in the Mapleville area. Scott, if you zoom to it's the old Helms Grocery
Right.
site. And what this is the applicant, they're wanting to rezone this because it has also been used for several commercial uses over the years other than Helms Groceries, and it's been vacant for a while, so it's lost its non-conforming status. So what they're looking to do on this is the applicant's proposing to use this for a area to rebuild and sell starters and alternators on vehicles, larger vehicles, but he's not doing the work there on the vehicles. That is elsewhere. They send them to him, they rebuild the electric motors on them and the windings, and they send it back for the installation. So, and from talking with the applicant, it's going to be about 3 people working that building, doing this work on there.
Okay, so will there be improvements to the location? Landscaping, fencing?
I do not believe that they're doing anything right now for landscaping.
Okay.
They are putting up I've got the hours here, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. They are going to put up a wood privacy fence around a dumpster. And they haven't placed it yet, but we need to work with them on the placement of the dumpster. No outside storage of materials or merchandise on the property.
Okay.
No compressors, generators on the exterior of the building, and that signage will comply.
It should be a quiet business.
Yeah, it's the
Sounds like it
windings.
would
Like I said,
be.
they're not going to work on the trucks right
Yeah.
there at that location.
But as long as they don't do anything to that building, then they're not required to do landscaping or any of that stuff.
That was not anything that they proposed, and until
Okay.
they start touching that, I mean, like I said, in a planned development, people can come in and put stuff in there, but in the location that there is multiple uses in that area.
Right, okay, thank you.
Director Richardson?
Thank you, Mayor. Back to number 7. We did make the appropriate notification, including to Southwest Ops, correct?
You pull up, and I believe we did. Let me get into the notification section. Yes, we did.
And we had no registered objectors. And it is, sewer is available at the site, correct?
Yes, it's all available, and there was a letter of support sent by Upper Baseline and the Windermere Neighborhood Association, and then we did receive an email from Southwest Little Rock United for Progress in support.
And Entity does not, they don't object as well. They already have, serves already available
Yeah,
overhead
there's no
power
objection
lines.
for that.
We didn't get any comments from CenterPoint Energy, nor AT&T, or
No.
no objections from Central Arkansas Water,
No,
and no comments from county planning.
no
Or fire
comments at all for
department.
those.
Okay, thank you.
Director Wright?
Mayor, Jamie, this is about item number 5. It looks like they're expanding the master plan, or they're planning to build something else there?
They are. Well, if you look at that site plan, the phase 1, and you know where the existing building is, and there's stuff that's shown also over to your left, closer to John Barrow, that's not in just yet. The phase 1 is to the north, between Carti Way and the interstate. It's that area up there.
Going back toward the Raleigh Drive? Back to the back?
Yes, I mean, Scott, if you go to the zoning map, and what this also does, if you look at the zoning, they have several that wasn't Carti zoning.
I don't think so.
There you go.
Now,
If you look at it, it has multiple zonings on there, and even like an open,
they just want
office
to
and
change it
everything.
to
So,
one
so they
plan
want to change it to one because they're trying to incorporate. Before, the previous development was all to the south side of Carti Way. So now they're looking at property on the north side to add some facilities there for cancer treatment and everything. And then, and we had talked with them, staff had talked to them to present a plan of that so that we can see what's happening, for that area, so we can understand what they're looking to develop. One of the requirements that was requested of them on this was that this phase that they are proposing on that north side, they need to present and pull a building plan for that area by December of 2020.
Okay.
And that was approval in the write-up.
And I guess that plan will show if there's any building closer to Barrow.
Go back to the site sketch, Scott, and they had proposed, and they haven't even submitted anything or to us, that phase 1, that stuff that's just to the north of the main building of Carti is their phase 1. The rest of it is other things that they're thinking about in the future. That will be future phases, but they presented that so we can see what they're looking to do, because that was a request they made of them, is I would like to see what they're proposing, their future plan, so we can kind of see it.
Okay. Okay, looks like there's a steep drop back over now. I'd like
There,
to see how
there
they're
is
gonna
a
do
steep
all
drop
that.
in that area, and staff has had some discussions that that may be reconfigured a little bit to that,
Wow.
in that area.
Yeah.
But it was good to see that they had put an overall proposal of what they plan to do for the area.
Yeah, well, they built the nursing home up there, so I guess you can build in those areas. We'll see.
All right. Seeing that there are no other questions, I want to thank Mr. Moore.
Mayor, today is also bittersweet for me, professionally and personally. This is our assistant city manager's last official board meeting, so I wanted to recognize James and thank him publicly for doing a great job. He wasn't the the typical assistant city manager I was looking for initially, but having that private sector experience and being able to look at things a little different, he's been a tremendous asset to our organization, and I just wanted to acknowledge him and say thank you. And I'm still mad about him leaving, but I understand Sally has a little bit more influence than I have. So James, thank you.
And James, just thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to work with you now as we approach the 6-month mark. And you've just been a great help, and we really do appreciate you. I know the entire board feels the same way. And if you would like to say anything, we definitely would love for you to hear some remarks from you. I know you got something to say.
What about if I give you free shortcake for life? What can I do for that?
I'll come back once a week. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. Really the last almost 5 years have really been an honor and a privilege for me. I know when Bruce and I first started talking about this, it was probably wasn't on my radar screen, but the more we talked, the more interested I became, and believe in public service. And this has been a pleasure for me, serving each of you and the citizens. And it's also bittersweet for me, Bruce. And I thank you for the opportunity that you've given me, because I've greatly appreciated it.
Thank you. Hear, hear. All right, Director Adcock.
Yes. Mayor and Mr. Moore, I have a letter here from the Arkansas Department of Arkansas Heritage. It says that they are pleased to inform us that the Fair Park War Memorial Golf Course in Little Rock, Arkansas has been determined eligible for the National Registry of Historic Places. So what does this mean with us getting ready to close this golf course?
It doesn't mean anything. War Memorial Stadium is already, I believe, on the National Historic Course. I do know Mr. McCarty has gotten that letter as a result of our decision to cease golf operations. Golf operations will remain ceased, and it goes in effect on July the 5th, because there is a scheduled golf tournament on July the 4th, and so it will continue to be ceased.
Mr. Carpenter, over the last 28 years, I know anytime the National Registry of Historic Places has gotten involved in houses or something that we are in the process of tearing down, that we have to rethink that. Is this something that we need to rethink, or what do we do with this? Can we name the clubhouse maybe as a historic site instead of the golf course?
Director Adcock, in terms of naming the clubhouse or not, I don't know, and I think that would have to be directed. The second sentence in the second paragraph notes that the first thing that has to be done is to get the permission of the city to make the application, because we own the property. So the fact that it could be is not the same as it would be.
Okay. Mayor, would you see us making the application for the clubhouse?
I've already shared. We had a board vote. We went through a month-and-a-half long conversation about our city's finances. That decision has been voted on. That golf course remains closed starting July the 5th.
I ask about the clubhouse.
Anything on, if it's on top of that golf course, it means it's going to be closed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Adcock. Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. Two quick things. when we had the due diligence report on the golf courses last week, those recommendations, do they not require a vote from us up here? Or is that just something that the due diligence report suggests and we just, it makes it real and makes it final? Because I was under the impression that would be something that we would have to vote on up here, particularly in light of the fact that the week before or 2 weeks before, we took a vote on whether or not we need to have this due diligence report 2 weeks from that prior meeting. So is this something that doesn't, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Moore, doesn't require
What requires, what's your question?
the actual closing of the ones that have been recommended?
Yeah, and again, I hate to, we did this last week. Last week you voted, well, no, there was no vote last week. 2 weeks ago, you voted on the policy that 2 golf courses would be closed. Of the 4 that we have in the city of Little Rock, that's a board policy decision based
Yes,
on
sir.
the budget. We shared that there would be a due diligence period.
Yes, sir.
We did have our due diligence period. City Attorney Tom Carpenter then looked at legality of different things. Our parking staff and John Eckert then proposed those recommendations, and management accepted those recommendations and then went into effect.
Well, I guess my question, I think you let it open the door for my question, is that when we voted 2 weeks ago to have the due diligence report, we didn't have any specific recommendation for any particular golf course.
You did not vote to have a due diligence report. You voted on closing 2 of the 4 golf courses. That's the only thing you voted for.
And the 2 were identified in that vote?
No.
That's my question. We didn't have enough.
You would not have. That's what you didn't vote on identifying. You voted on 2 versus 4. Management makes the decision on which of the 2 based on the board's decision.
Thank you. Tom, it looks like you want to chime in on
2001,
that.
y'all adopted the master plan for parks, and the way the master plan reads is that any park within the city identified, as long as it's used for a park purpose, it's done. And so that's sort of the management decision there. These parks are not being closed, they're being revitalized and reformed.
A golf course is merely a part of a park. It's not the park.
I got you, but as I think I mentioned this last week, that this doesn't prohibit any future private sector development on that property, correct?
Anything that happens with that property based on our master parks plan agreement has to go, as we shared last week, has to first go to review of our Parks Commission. Then once it's reviewed for the Parks Commission, if there's any amendment to it, then has to come before the board for a board vote.
And I had a request because I was amazed when we were told we had 63 parks. And I made a request on how do we quantify city-owned land as a park. And I hadn't gotten that information yet.
Yes, you did. You got it Friday.
It was in the Pony
Everybody got it
Friday. I mean, I
right.
saw the vacant structures.
And it showed each park and how they were defined, and y'all got that. I mean, it was.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And I think also, since you told me I had that, I want to echo your points about James and his work here. I think it's interesting that we have a former city assistant manager here, Brian, tonight, and Brian set the bar pretty high. I think James more than met that bar and sometimes went above it. Brian, if you understand and feel okay with that, but he did a wonderful job, and he raised the bar a little bit higher, my friend, but you're doing an excellent job where you are. So I want to echo your points on that, Bruce. James has been helpful and been really involved and engaged with requests from the citizens in the community, and I really appreciate you, James, and the work you've done.
Thank you, Director Richardson. Director Campiris.
Just a request, non-golf course. On the 9th, we're supposed to consider health care. I will be not here that day. Could we put it off a week?
That's fine with us.
Okay.
When would you be back in town?
I'll be back the next week.
The next one?
Yeah.
Susan, if you'll make that amendment, please. Director Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to do with homelessness and our
We're going to get it fixed, Director Hendricks.
Okay.
Director,
Thi-
go ahead.
This is to do with our homeless population, and I'm seeing an increase along Colonel Glenn Road between Colonel Glenn and 36, especially on the parking lots of our Kroger and our Dollar Tree. And I've gotten some complaints from business owners along there. And I'm also asking Mr. Moore if we have, under the new program that we have where we employ some of our homeless people, have we approached, or do you know if we've approached that population through there and offered them jobs so that they could perhaps remove themselves from the parking lot? I was at Kroger the other night, and there was one man had strung up a big blanket and a quilt and had his basket and looked like all of his furniture and everything out there on the parking lot.
Do you know the answer offhand?
I would appreciate it, and I would like to also give a compliment to the program. Copeland's in Shackelford Crossings has said they can really tell a difference. They've gotten a lot less complaints from their customers that are coming into the restaurant, and they were very, very much appreciative, and they are aware of the program, and they wanted me to pass that on. That was the general manager of Copeland's at Shackelford Crossings. Thank you.
Thank you. Director, Vice Mayor Wyrick.
Okay, I have a couple of things. The storm damage that happened last week, was it just last week? No, James, we're going to miss you. You are our connection with energy for a long time. Around Heineman Park, in the Metacliff Brookwood neighborhood, they've been hit pretty hard with power outages. There's a lot of trees through there. Either the contractor or Energy has come through and, made their way to make the repairs, and they have thrown trees in people's yards. And the last time this happened, we had John Honeywell was at a meeting, and they were complaining about it. And I think you made an effort to try to get them to clean up their stuff. But it's happening again this time. And one gentleman that lives at 6 North Metacliff Drive has been hit 2 or 3 times by the debris as they go through and clean up the power lines. So that needs to be corrected. We need to speak to Energy about throwing trees in people's yards. He said these were not his trees. They were trees in the right-of-way, and they've been thrown in his yard. And that's number 6 North Metacliff Drive. The other thing is that it seems like every time there's a power outage, I know Metacliff Brookwood had 332 people out of power from the beginning until Saturday night, 7 or 8 o'clock. It was a long duration. And there are probably poles broken, but they have a lot of trees through that right-of-way. And I'm wondering if we can get Energy to take a look at that and see if they can't trim some of those trees, be proactive in clearing some of them so they don't get so hard hit. We have some elderly people in that neighborhood, and there was one lady that has a husband that had oxygen, and he had a real hard time, getting through this for the duration. So if we could work on that, I think that would be helpful. The other thing is we used to have a trailer park on Daly Drive, and we closed that trailer park. Well, guess what happened? They moved those trailers to another trailer park on Eva Lane. The owner of that trailer park has died. And I understand that we have this property in court. And Mr. Carpenter, I've talked to you about it. Our folks in housing say it needs to be declared unsafe. There are women and children living in that trailer park. They do not have trash pickup. They're taking trash and throwing it into the Tom Park. It really is an unhealthy unsightly situation. So, Tom, I know you were supposed to be working on this. I would like a status as to where we are.
The status is that the information that was provided to us by housing was too old to pursue at that particular time. So we're going to need new evaluations of the property to be able to take action.
And what does that entail?
An inspection.
Okay. I suspect these are trailers that are the pre-1975 trailers.
They're pre-75, they're not allowed within the city.
Well, Joan, don't you think they are? Most of them, because they were moved from Daily Drive over there when we raised a ruckus about that happening. So somebody needs to take this action. Somebody needs to look at the health and safety of those families that are over there. Our housing folks have tried in earnest to take care of the situation, and we need to move forward with that as soon as possible. Now, there's some neighborhood people that have been involved in it. They've talked about going to 7 on Your Side or any type of press to get some help there. It's been going on for over 8 months. So somebody needs to take control and handle that situation.
And Vice Mayor, what we'll do is we'll coordinate a site visit with the City Attorney's Office and Housing and PD and Fire and go review it as we've done in the past.
I think there's also some court situations going on as well. So anyway, that's a serious situation, so we need to take care of it. The other thing, this is back to parks. I attended the Meadowcliff Brookwood Neighborhood Association meeting last night, and they are very interested in the repurposing of Heineman Park. And I know we probably have some volunteers that would help with that study. And I know, Mayor, you're going to have a task force. So can you give us, I couldn't tell them much about what our plans are for that. So if you could tell us what your thoughts are. So
Yes, as we shared last week, John Eckert is identifying team members within our existing park staff team, to focus on programming, maintenance, and operations for both Hyman and War Memorial Parks, because since they are parks, they will remain open through the normal operational hours. They will remain maintained, and they will be programmed for the public. And so we should have an update from John Eckert in one of our internal meetings with myself and the Chief Administrative Officer soon, and then we'll come back and have an update to the board on what that will look like in the short term. As you shared, either tomorrow or Thursday, I'll be announcing a task force called the R3 Little Rock Parks Task Force that will be, I think it was reported in the paper, and it's actually my end, so there's no need to do it. Get it straight. I think I shared 12, but I meant 20. It'll be a team of 20 individuals from across the city that'll be working with John Eckert. John Eckert will be the staff lead for that task force, and so that task force will then, the R3 Little Rock Parks Task Force, once named, will begin working in the month of July to the end of the year, and they'll come back sometime before the end of 2019 with recommendations for Hyman and War Memorial Parks for the long term, and they'll make those presentations to the city board. And that will be a public process because it is a community-led task force, and they'll have different meetings with the public and things of that nature throughout the second half of 2019.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. The other part, the other part of my question is, Heineman was condemned because they were in the floodway. And as I tried to share with you all, there is a portion of Heineman that's in the floodway. But the thing I want to bring up tonight is we have two creeks that are two waterways that converge. We have Brody Creek, and we have what's the other one? Fish, yeah, Fish Creek. It left me, it went zip. Fish Creek. So at high water events, that the Heinemann Park gets water under it. And so if we're talking about repurposing and spending money and doing things in Heinemann in order to enable good play, good fun, and not worry about the water, somebody needs to take a look at that waterway. When I was there, I observed that the pipes that are going under the roads were probably halfway full of silt. They're also full of tree limbs. There's a lot of silt in the Brody Creek part that's coming up. There's just not a path for the water to come through. And so the water actually gets into the Heinemann Park, and it gets into the back of some of our residents that live there. So that needs to be looked at and addressed. The other thing is that the park is on the backside of a lot of properties that are in the Meadowcliff Brookwood subdivision, and they're requesting that in our mowing that we actually mow to the boundaries of the park so they don't have that high grass and high weeds behind their homes. So when we're talking about mowing there, we need to mow the park, especially up close to where the residents are. So if somebody will take a note about that and take care of that, I'd appreciate it. I think that's it. Do what? No, I'm good. Thank you.
Director Hendricks.
The first thing, thank you. The first thing I want to do is to ask Mr. Moore if Wendell could check this button. That's my first. And the second thing is that I want to report that I attended every one of those sessions that you asked that we go to, except one, and that was Southwest. The attendance was poor. I don't know who thought of that idea, but people just didn't care. Apparently they didn't care because it didn't show up. So I think that this didn't happen under your leadership, but in 2018. So I'm just reporting on that commission. Very poorly attended.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the name of this thing that we did? The governance. Yeah, the governance. People
What's it
just-
called, Director Computers?
Governance what?
I was asking Director, I think he
Yeah.
brought it together. Just getting you back from last week.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. And as I said, I only missed one.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I did speak at every one of them to express my concerns.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Director Adcock?
Yes. Mr. Moore, I would like someone to check to see why Come and Go on Colonel Glenn and University is closing. We have a big problem out there on weekends and sometimes during the week at night. We not only have the large homeless population that Director Wright was talking about, but we also have about 50 to 100 automobiles making donut holes and going in and out of Come and Go and going over to McDonald's across the street. And the police chief sends them back and forth and everything. And it's a danger out there at that intersection. But Come and Go pulled their signs and locked their doors today. McDonald's across the street pulled up all of their gas pumps, and all they have is hamburgers now. So that area is really taking a beating over the homeless and over the automobiles going on the weekends and at night. So I need you to check those out and find out what we can do about it. And also check with Come and Go and see if maybe we can convince them that we're going to address the problem so that they'll stay. I've talked to Kroger and also Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and they're having such a problem with it. The Kroger people now have just got where they tell their security guard to stay inside, don't even go outside. And I stopped last week and just kept on going because they had them laying down in front of the doors and panhandling every car that was coming in. So now they've gone to the parking lot since they can't go to the corners. Thank you.
Director Richardson?
Yes, Mayor. Two quick points. The Shell station at McDonald's, Joan, has been closed for quite a while. That didn't just recently happen. And the issue with respect to the come and go, the old Kmart parking lot, on weekends, you do see quite a number of vehicles doing donuts, and I mean, it's really, really heavily populated. And one of the things you don't see any of those cars pulled over, any of those people confronted, I think, in a way that could help deter that. But it happens, and it happens a lot. And I think it happens so much without any retribution that they feel comfortable doing it every single weekend. I mean, it's almost like it's a race car track out there. It's a racetrack out there. But the Shell has been closed at McDonald's for quite a while. The pumps have been put up for quite a while. I'm sure the brownfield work has been done for quite a while, at least 4 or 5 months. And then back on the homeless population, and I heard we're going to do some canvassing, but I think we need to be real mindful that a lot of these panhandlers are not homeless. What they do is they have blankets and stuff out with them to appear to be homeless to get more visibility and more sympathy and empathy. But I know a lot of those folks personally. They live in an apartment complex. They're not all homeless. That when you see them out there, they're panhandlers. And then one of the things that help their visibility with panhandling is they go and they get blankets and go sit in front of Kroger's or parking lots of other stores and lay down and hang around. And the security at Kroger's, they do have security inside and outside because I shop there quite frequently. So just those 2 points, Mayor. And then your point when you hit Dean, you kind of caught me too, that blow over here when you got back at Dean on what's it called. And James, Bruce, if we can have James before he leaves, deal with BJ's request for tree trimming from Entergy on some of those lines where we had power outages. So Bruce, if you can have James take care of that before he leaves, and if he doesn't, don't let him leave.
Director Peck.
Thank you,
Director Richardson.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I just wanted to do a public shout out to Public Works. John, I think you were on vacation, but your staff did a great job picking up trees. And Bruce, thank you for keeping us up to date. As much trouble that we had, I mean, I did a little post, and a couple hundred people were just so thankful and grateful. So I just like to tell the good stories too, because your crew did a great job. They picked up over 400 trees, something like that, 425 and worked around the clock, and they were actually smiling.
That sounds like a great article, Rebecca. 425 trees.
I mean, I took some pictures in parking lots, and they were actually smiling and doing their job, and so I thought, I'm telling this story.
That's good news. Good news. Rachel, that's good news. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, everyone, again, this is we're coming towards the end of our agenda meeting. Really do appreciate everyone. We all do a lot of hard work for our city, and many times we don't hear it enough. But I just want to say I appreciate each and every board member, and I appreciate our city attorney and our chief administrative officer and our madam clerk and our entire team. We got a phenomenal city. We've seen a lot in the last couple of months with a historic flood, and then right after the historic flood, torrential rain and thunderstorms. But today is a brighter day. The sun is outside, and it's not too hot, and it's July. About to be July, and we haven't really experienced heat yet. And so we're excited. It's a great day, and meeting is now adjourned.